The wrongness of volunteering. Chewing off a leg does not make sense unless one is an animal caught in a leg hold trap, then it makes perfect sense. Who is more praised than the volunteer? Hospitals could not function without volunteers, Big Brothers, Doctors Without Borders, the Red Cross, and millions of churches and social organizations such as the Knights of Columbus and Shiners could not exist without volunteers. The Cancer Society receives billions every year, as does the United Way and many other charities, from fundraisers who volunteer both their time and money to what they see as good causes. Florence Nightingale, Dr. Livingston were volunteers, as are thousands of others who go into the world helping others, even to the point at which they put their life in danger. And we ought not to forget those who volunteer to fight in wars at the risk and cost of their own lives. Some people think these volunteers are foolhardy, and perhaps in one sense they are, but when we gain so much benefit at so little cost and risk to ourselves, who is there to hold them back and to ask them to reconsider? Certainly not the organizations that could not exist without them. Who is to tell those who pay it forward to hold off doing their good deed? Is there a government who will write a law restricting volunteering? Do governments want to license and monitor volunteers like they do paid work? No. We gain too much. We cannot imagine what our taxes would be like if people did not volunteer to clean roadside ditches, lakes, and polluted streams. What would happen to the wildlife contaminated by oil spills if thousands did not flock to undo the damage? Where were the National Guardsmen preventing these good Samaritans from selflessly devoting their time? Where are the demonstrations calling for governments to do something about this scourge of selflessness that infects so many, regardless of age or financial circumstance? Not a voice is raised in protest against volunteers. We volunteer our time to answer tedious questions, as we do so many interviewers who are anxious to provide us with better information. How many hours do we dedicate to helping business market their products and services? Even the innumerable contests in which we go online and answer a few questions is essentially millions of people volunteering their time to help a company gather data on us, because we all know the chance of winning is unlikely. Hundreds of youth volunteer for the arduous work of planting trees. How many go to help clear-cut those same forests? Volunteers exist to do good. Evil people do not gather to help achieve some nefarious end. Evil works alone. However, there are many people with good intentions who will man the phones and emergency call centers, who will testify in a trial, and who serve as jury members, just to make the court system work. We respond to calls to do good, but how much good is being done? In the U.S., volunteer work is valued at $23 H.R.1. In 2011, researchers at Johns Hopkins University estimated that almost 1 billion people in the world volunteer their time every year. If all these people lived in one nation, it would be the third most populous nation on Earth. In Canada, a report done for TD Bank estimated that, in 2010, more than 13.3 million people completed volunteer work. Counting up the hours rendered, these Canadians devoted 2.1 billion hours to volunteering. This is equivalent to 1 million full-time jobs, or 8% of full-time jobs in Canada. The same report determined that the total value to the Canadian economy was in the region of $50 billion, too. This represents a lot of value added to the Canadian economy. However, let's be honest, without volunteers, hospitals would have trouble staying open, some towns would have no fire department, and the hardship people would endure without help would be incalculable. The world obtains great value from the work of volunteers. But is it fair to say this value is economic value? Economic value is generally considered to exist when someone takes an asset and improves its functionality. Value is added to corn when it is crushed and cooked and made into cornflakes. In what sense does a big sister add value by volunteering to spend time with her little sister? No doubt the world is made a better place, and certainly the benefit she provides cannot be overestimated. On the other hand, we do good when we pull weeds out of our garden, but no one really considers we are contributing to the economy. Imagine a billionaire dying and deeding a large tract of land to the province. It could be said that the work he did to earn the money to buy the land benefited the people. The money he earned and paid for the land created an economic benefit. But the land did not provide any economic benefit to the buyer. So how did the land bequeathed create economic benefit to the province or its people? We could say the gift eased the tax burden, as the province did not have to use its revenues to purchase the land. But this kind of benefit is speculative, not real. The people have a park because of the behest. This is a good, but is it an economic benefit? To the degree volunteering saves people money, a social benefit is created for those who have saved money. Government programs create social benefits, not economic benefits. Social goods make life better for some, they do not actually create economic activity or economic benefit overall. What social goods do is transfer some economic activity to a different sector. Private spending is transformed into public spending through taxation. By helping at hospitals, volunteers create social benefits, not economic benefits. It is more correct to say volunteers harm the economy. If volunteers were not volunteering, someone would have to be paid to do the work. But no one wants to pay higher taxes to pay people to clean parks and serve as auxiliaries at hospitals. In this sense, volunteering is people paying your taxes for you. Volunteers provide us with social benefits without raising taxes. But then why do we all not volunteer in lieu of paying taxes? If governments cannot pay people to do what needs to be done, why doesn't the private sector pay auxiliaries and those who clean the sides of a road? We all know the answer to why private enterprise does not provide social goods. Private businesses cannot make a profit from products that are generally available, such as roads. Either governments tax us so they can pay someone to provide social goods, or people volunteer to provide them freely. But why are we in a situation where either someone profits from providing necessary services, or a small section must provide the service through their taxes or direct labor? Is this the best system possible? Private enterprise is not allowed to deliver mail to densely populated areas because they do not want to deliver mail to the sparsely populated regions. Why is it okay for private enterprise to make a profit where it is easy to make a profit while leaving governments and volunteers to provide social goods when profits are harder to make? The solution is much simpler than you might think, but it is biblical and so offensive to many. The response to these comments will be to claim that regardless of the good or bad of volunteering, it is necessary. If we want to fight fires, support charities, and keep our hospitals operating, we need volunteers. To that we can only reply, if you create and sustain a system that cannot operate without volunteers, perhaps the best solution is to change the system, rather than to exploit your good-intentioned neighbors. To better illustrate the problem and the solution, conceive of an island populated by just two men, Joe and Bill. Joe is a painter and Bill a mechanic. Joe wants his car fixed and Bill his house painted. Neither man has any money. Because Joe cannot pay Bill and Bill cannot pay Joe, both remain unemployed. Joe has a car that will not run and Bill a home that is beginning to rot because it needs painting. To any observer this makes no sense, and yet multiply this situation a millionfold, and economists think it not only makes sense but people needing work who cannot get work because the millions of unemployed who need work have no money to hire each other is an irresolvable paradox. If the situation is irrational when two persons cannot help each other because neither are solvent, is the situation made rational when it is 500,000 people who are both jobless and desperate to find some way of getting help? The truth is, regardless of the level of unemployment, there are always millions of jobs that need doing. We know at its heart an economy is just two people engaging in what is known as an economic exchange. The economy is made up of many multiples of two people who exchange goods and services in a mutually beneficial fashion. Nothing changes when we increase the numbers of people involved. The global economy breaks down into billions of dualities composed of a buyer and a seller. We know groups of friends and tribes can help each other out without anyone seeing a dollar. Why have advanced economies largely lost this ability? Why is the only recourse charity when people run out of money? The only thing that changes when we move from the context of a family to the level of a town or higher is the accounting. When one helps a friend or family member, one is not concerned with who owes who, nor with the amount owed. The accounting in a closely knit group remains informal. It is when we deal people who we do not trust that accounting comes into play. This is all that money is and is supposed to do. Money is a way to maintain records in an uncertain relationship. When we do not have a workable monetary system, people resort to volunteering out of desperation. Those who have a high sense of responsibility feel it is their duty to keep the system working, regardless of the cost. This is exploiting the most moral persons to keep an immoral system in operation, and it is wrong. 700 volunteers working at a hospital to keep it operational adds no value to the economy and deprives it of 700 wages. It also removes the economic signals that would tell us something is wrong. If there is a problem and those nearest to it hide the symptoms, there is no problem and nothing to fix. So the problem will persist until those who are going to extraordinary lengths to hide it die or are otherwise brought to the point of giving up. The problem is that the problem may be far worse at this